When I first heard about the Snyder Cut, I was in support of it because I remembered Batman v Superman. I remembered how the original Snyder Cut of that movie was superior to the theatrical release, mainly because the theatrical release was mangled to make it short enough to play in theaters. It didn't make sense because of the cuts that were made, but the director's cut did make sense, and therefore it was better. That was why we wanted the Snyder Cut of Justice League in the first place. But looking back at the Batman v Superman movie, even though it looked incredible and was superior to the theatrical cut, in hindsight, I can say that maybe I placed it on too high a pedestal. It still had a lot of problems, and even though it looked incredibly nice, the writing was still full of issues. The Snyder Cut of Justice League, to me, it seems like a different story entirely. What I thought would happen when it was announced was that Snyder would get the chance to make Justice League feel more like the film he originally wanted to make. Man of Steel and his cut of Batman v Superman, while intentionally divisive, were tonally consistent, which Justice League was not. I was under the impression that the Snyder Cut would make Justice League more tonally consistent and add a few more scenes to fill out the threadbare story. Then they found out about the addition of Deathstroke, changing the look of Steppenwolf, and the inclusion of more Joker scenes in the film. Once my initial hype for the Snyder Cut died down, I started to realize something. While Batman v Superman's director's cut seemed like an auteur at the height of his success creating the film that he wanted using all the resources available to him, kind of like Heaven's Gate, this Snyder Cut feels like a disgraced auteur trying desperately to transform a great failure that tarnished his reputation into a crowd-pleasing success. It feels like Snyder, perhaps at the behest of the financiers of the film, made a list of all the complaints that people had about the film and is trying to fix every problem that fans had in order to create a film that they will like. The problem with this line of thinking is that a bloated movie featuring multiple cool villains is what fans will likely say they want, because in a perfect world, yes, their perfect Justice League movie will have all their favorite superheroes and all their favorite villains. So if you ask the fans what they would want in a DC movie, they'll inevitably tell you to include their favorite characters. And if you keep listening to them, you'll end up with a very bloated movie with 50 different villains fighting 20 different heroes. And the villains will probably win. What fans really want from Justice League was a tonally consistent movie that could stand up to scrutiny. A movie that could do what the previous cut failed to do. Successfully juggle all of the different characters' plots and explanations in a way that was tonally consistent and relatively easy to follow. A movie where the characters needed to work together as a team to defeat a more powerful foe, instead of letting Superman do most of the work as they cheer him on from the sidelines because Zack Snyder likes to treat Superman like he's a Gary Stu in a fanfiction story, or a Gary Stu in an Ayn Rand novel. I know that Zack Snyder is an objectivist, which is why his movies featuring Superman are divisive. It's also crucial to a core issue in Justice League that likely won't be addressed, which is that in Justice League, Superman is faster than the Flash. This is a big problem because in the comics, every character has an ability that makes them more suited to certain situations than Superman. The Flash is faster, Batman is smarter, Aquaman can handle underwater situations, and Wonder Woman has an arsenal of unique magical items. Yes, Superman is generally the strongest and most moral of the group, but the others are far from useless. That is why, in Justice League, people had an issue with every other character being portrayed as essentially being there to support Superman, rather than every character using their additional skills to support each other. If that flaw isn't fixed, then the addition of Deathstroke, more Joker scenes, and making Steppenwolf look a bit less stupid are virtually meaningless, and will probably just result in a more bloated film with the same flaws as the previous cut. The only meaningful change will likely be that the film will be more tonally consistent. I think that when the Snyder Cut is finally released and it isn't as good as people expected it to be, Jared Leto's questionable history of grooming younger fans will be brought back into the public eye, and people will probably look into things like Camp Mars, as well as the numerous accusations against him more closely. Then, Jared Leto will be cancelled. And while people will defend the movie and Zack Snyder will probably engage in Twitter feuds, Warner Bros. Will probably disown the divisive DC movies and move on to creating a different, more crowd-pleasing franchise that isn't run by divisive personalities with divisive political views. Or, more likely, they'll probably just reboot the DC cinematic universe and learn nothing from their mistakes.